In this video, we're going to talk a little bit about multi-dimensional arrays, which would allow us to put multiple columns and multiple rows all into one big table array that we can reference in our code. Right now, we've created a one-dimensional list, just a list of names, nothing special about it. So we'll go ahead and take out this so we can keep our code functioning the way it was before. And we see we have this one-dimensional list, just a list of names. If I go back to my Excel file, we see these are all in the same column. This is a one-dimensional list, a one-dimensional array that we've created. But we could actually create a two-dimensional array if we wanted to match up with this data. Say that we wanted the grade value to be in there as well. So I'll go ahead and I'll make up some grades for all of these people. And then we will go back to our VBA code. And we will create a third public subroutine. And we'll call this two-dimensional array, like so. We'll go ahead and create a new array. We'll just call this one 2D, and we'll go ahead and let it be dynamic. And it is a string, meaning text. And then we'll use redim to go ahead and size this array. And this time, instead of only putting in this one particular size, 0 to 4 only, we're going to put in a second size. So we're going to say 0 to 5, comma, space, 0 to 1. And what this means is if I go back to my Excel file, we know the 0 to 5 corresponds to this direction. All of these are going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It represents the row number of these particular items. That second sizing that we just put in, that 0 to 1, right here, in this case means the columns, 0 and 1. So all of these are 0, all of these are 1. Now when we refer to items in this two-dimensional array, instead of just saying item number 0 and knowing that we're going to get John out of it, it's now a two-dimensional array. So item number 0 could correspond to either of these, or 0 could correspond to all of these. So in essence, this becomes a coordinate system. This is item 0, 0. This is item 0, 1. This is item 1, 0. This is item 1, 1. And we'll build the array like this so that we can easily see, okay, my name column is the 0th column, and my grade column is the first column. So I know anytime I see a comma 0, I'm referring to the name. Anytime I see a comma 1, I'm referring to the grade. And so we can just tweak our existing code a little bit to get this to behave the way we want to. So I'll go ahead and enter down here so I get some room. And I'll go ahead and create all of these variables, assign them values. So my 0, 0 is going to be John. And that is, again, because I am in my 0th row, 0th column, which if we go back to the Excel file, we can see my 0th row, 0th column is John. Now I'll go ahead and go into my first row, 0th column, which is James. My second row, 0th column, is Hannah. My third row, 0th column, and again, anytime we see that 0th column, we know that we're referring to the name column. And my last name is Eddie. And I'll come back through here. Made a typo on this one, so I'll correct it. And these should be all of my names. So now we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to do it for our grade values. So in this case, we'll again start in our 0th row, but instead of the 0th column, we'll be in the first column, and we'll set that equal to 90. And now when I come back to my Excel file, we can see my 0th row, my first column is 90, and that makes sense. So we'll come back to here, and we'll go ahead and set up all the rest of them as well. First row, first column, 95. Second row, first column, 99. third row, first column, 97. The fourth row, first column is a 94. And the fifth row, first column is a 92. And so now I have my two-dimensional array set up to appear like it does in this Excel file, and we can go ahead and get an input and an output from this. So we'll create an integer. This time we'll call it y, and we'll say y is the input box, and we'll use the same input box that we've been using. Which student number do you want to view? And we'll call this input box student ID, close parentheses. And we'll go ahead and create our output box, our message box. And this time we'll say you selected, and to combine our text strings, 2D, which is the array name. And in this case, we can't just put the number. You need to put the number of the row and the number of the column. So we'll start with the row that the user just selected and the 0th column, which is going to be that person's name. Then we'll use and VBCRLF to create a new line, and sign again to continue combining text. We'll again list that person's name, which is the 0th column, put the and sign, we'll say has a, and sign. This time we'll call our first column, which is the grade corresponding to that row, and sign in this class. And we'll go ahead and title this box student name and grade. So if we break this down for a second, in case you haven't seen the string video or aren't familiar with these ampersands and the VBCRLF here, VBA treats all string as text. So all of these string variables that we've created, they're all text. And when we feed that text into a variable, for example, we surround that text with quotes. So in this case, the text is just John, and the quotes is what tells the system this is actually going to be text. It's going to be string. So we've done the same thing with our message box. This is all the text that is going to appear as the actual message. If we wanted to change the buttons, we would do that here, but we're going to leave it as just the OK button. And this text is what shows up as the title of that box. So if we just look at this message and what's appearing in this message, we've given it the text you selected, and we put a space at the end of this. And this text is its own text surrounded in quotes, and the and sign means we're about to combine this text with more text. But this time it's going to be text that's in a variable form, so we're not just typing exactly the word that we want there. We're going to let the system pull the value of this variable. In this case, the name that the user has selected. We're going to again use the and sign, which means we're not quite done building our message. We're not quite done building all of this text yet. The VBCRLF just means we're going to create a new line. It's like hitting enter on your keyboard, and that's just the code that VBA uses to designate a new line. Again, we'll use the and sign to mean, hey, we're still not done yet, we're still going. This is again a variable, again the name, and sign again to mean we're still going. We've put a space here and then says has a. So this is going to be its own text that the system is going to continue tagging on to the end of our prompt as we go. Then we'll put another and sign. This time we're reading the grade, another and sign, space here in this class. And so when we run this, we should see you selected the person's name, and then on a new line we'll see the person's name has a, the grade in this class. And we'll see this when we run the code. So if we go ahead and shrink our VBA window, click on the macros button. This time select two-dimensional array and click run. And we'll say we want to view student 2 and click OK. Now we see we selected Hannah, which makes sense. Hannah is our second student here. And Hannah has a 99 in this class. And again, this makes sense because we can see her corresponding grade is a 99. So this is worked by pulling our 0th column, which is the name, our first column, which is the grade, and we've got the row number that the user selected to begin with. And so this is because we've created a two-dimensional array, and usually use two-dimensional arrays for when your data is somewhat related. In this case, we have the name and we have the grade associated with that particular person's name. And then we can output all of this data however we want to output this data using our VBCRLF, which is the enter, using our ampersands to build all of this string together as one long message. And we'll go ahead and click OK. So in this video, we talked about how to create arrays and build arrays within VBA. And there are some easier ways to do this than just manually typing every single value in there. And we'll go over those in later videos. But arrays are a great tool to store multiple values, lists of values, into your VBA code for future use. They're much faster than trying to assign a single variable a different value every time, or creating hundreds of variables for all of the data you're trying to keep track of. So we talked about static arrays, which have one size and cannot be changed size unless you come back and you change it in the very initial declaration. We talked about dynamic arrays, which we can resize as we build the code at any point in the code, and we can use the word preserve to make sure we don't lose any of our pre-existing data. And we've talked about two-dimensional arrays, which are, as we talked about in the Excel file, capable of holding column data and row data. So we can really build some complex, large lists and tables into arrays and use that data later in our code. Overall, arrays are very useful tools for reading and writing data, and I would encourage you to take advantage of them while coding in VBA.